Hey everyone, today I want to talk to you about the 6 biggest mistakes that tarot beginners or even advanced tarot readers can make. Number 1, limiting the different suits to their preset meanings. For example, if you see a cup card, you think it always pertains to relationships. And if it comes up in a relationship spread, it must mean something good. Or it always has to do with emotion and love and friends. Or when a sword card comes up in a relationship spread, that something went wrong or that it doesn't belong there. It doesn't have a place there. That's not true. There are pre-made meanings for every card, and also areas of life that the elements and the suits pertain to. But the suits can just as much speak about your workplace or your house or your body as the discs can. And the swords can just as much talk about your emotions as the cups can, you know? So don't limit the suits necessarily. Most of the time that is what you want to do, but don't think that something is wrong with a spread because a certain card came up that doesn't seem to fit the theme of the reading. Oh yes, as a little disclaimer, all of these mistakes are related to how I read the tarot. I read it as something that is used to enhance your connection with yourself or help others enhance their connection with their subconscious, with their mind. For me, it's a psychological tool. So this is the perspective from which I will be looking at these mistakes. Maybe these mistakes aren't mistakes for you. Maybe they are just the way you read and it's worked for you, and that's absolutely fine. But using tarot as a means to dive into your psyche or read for others in an empowering way is where I'm coming from. Mistake number 2. You don't have a set phrase or question in your mind. You maybe don't even have a set theme. If you want to read the tarot effectively and helpfully, you will have to have a very good idea of what the question is that you're asking. And you don't have to have an answer because you're asking the tarot. Don't have an answer ready either. Just have the question, have the theme that you want to read about. Now, I will make a video about how to ask questions in an empowering and helpful way. So I will link this up here once it's up. Mistake number 3. You only go card by card in a spread and ignore the relationships between the cards. Of course, I understand that for a beginner, it's very scary to start with all the connections between all the cards. That's why in the beginning, I would advise you to at least go card by card when you first look at a spread. Put down the cards face down, turn them over one by one, and think about them one by one, or talk about them one by one. If you're with a friend, or even if you're talking to yourself, if we're honest, that's the best thing to do. So yeah, don't be afraid to see the connections between the cards, but also don't overwhelm yourself by immediately turning all of the cards. You can do that when you're more advanced. It's fine to go card by card first. After you've uncovered all the cards, you should ask yourself, how many swords do I have? How many wands do I have? How many court cards? How many major arcana cards? And then you will get a better sense of the whole of the spread. It won't be as overwhelming. So these are the questions that you should start with when you're trying to see a spread as a whole rather than card by card. And over time, you will also start seeing things like directionality, that certain cards look at other cards because the characters in the cards look over to another card or look away from a card. So you will be able to go onto an even deeper level, but do it consciously. Don't fall into the trap of, without noticing, always going card by card and ignoring the bigger whole. If you consciously ignore it in the beginning, that's fine. But at some point, you have to go on a deeper level and look at the whole of it, the whole of the spread. Mistake number 4, you get what I call book frustration, where you're frustrated with the meanings in a book, so you stop reading. Or the other way around, you are so into a book that you completely learn all the meanings from the book and leave your intuition out of play. Both isn't good. You have to find a certain balance where 50% comes from your intuition and 50% comes from books, plainly speaking. Maybe for you it's 70-30, 60-40, whatever. But it's important that you don't just cling to a meaning that you constructed or that someone else in a book constructed. It doesn't help you to be only book smart, but it also doesn't help you to only make your own interpretations, because tarot is a very complex system, and I'm all for intuitive reading, don't get me wrong, but you need a basis, because what my impression of intuitive readers is that a lot of the cards get very, very similar meanings, because of course your brain, if you never read a book about tarot, doesn't even have the power or the ability to construct all 78 meanings separately. And this is what a book helps with, definitely. And yeah, this isn't supposed to be bashing intuitive readers, not at all. If it's good for you, then I'm all with you, it's great. But don't think that only intuitive reading will make you a pro. Because what I feel like is that a lot of intuitive readers who started by reading books and then discovered the vast world of intuitive reading go back and tell newbie readers, hey, you should only focus on intuition. And that's unfair, because they themselves do have that basis of book reading. And whether you feel like it helped you or not, it definitely influenced you and it gave you a basis to be able to become an intuitive reader. And I think this is a misconception that makes new readers kind of unsure sometimes where they should go. So yeah, I think it's best to go 50-50. Have a strong book foundation, but build upon it yourself. Build upon it with your own ideas and emotions about the cards. Mistake number 5. You think that cards only have a good or a bad meaning. 2 of Cups, which is all about connection and relationship, always positive. 10 of Swords, which is about a guy being stabbed by 10 swords, is always bad. Now, it's important to realize that every card has a negative and a positive aspect to it. For example, the positive aspect of the 2 of Cups would be that you have a deep relationship with someone, but at the same time, maybe it means that you're losing yourself in the other person. And with the 10 of Swords, of course, it does have a negative element of defeat to it, but it also has a very positive element of being finally able to let go, or having to let go of something that has dragged you down. Because it's the natural progression from the 9 of Swords, where you are bothered by nightmares and you get out of it by finally letting that go, basically. So don't be deceived into thinking that cards only ever have a positive or a negative meaning. Even the most positively seeming cards, for example, like the Sun, everybody thinks it's just positive. But it also has a negative air of arrogance, of being too focused on the outer sphere of things and maybe not having put enough thought into your deeper emotions or your deeper intuition. Mistake number 6, not taking notes. I know, taking notes to some people is just like reading books. It's kind of tedious. it's kind of boring. Sometimes you're afraid of starting a new notebook because you don't want to soil it with your thoughts, with your newbie tarot thoughts. But believe me, it will bring you to another level if you are able to consistently take notes. Write down your daily cards every day, write down their meanings, write down what you associate with certain cards, maybe even just write down what decks you have or how many cards you've actually looked at, or take notes about the suit of wands or the suit of cups. There's so many options what you can take notes on, and it kind of gives you the ability to cross-reference things. It happens to me a lot where I draw a card and I'm like, wait, that was in my monthly draw for last month or 2 weeks ago. And I wouldn't be able to trace it back if I hadn't written all of that down. So it gives you a deeper understanding of what's going on in your own readings, definitely. And yes, it's very important that you take notes, because a lot of people deceive themselves into believing that they will remember all of this. But the truth is, you won't remember what your daily card 4 days ago was, or a week ago, or what the monthly spread you did for October was in November. You won't remember, so take notes. Definitely take notes. All right, so that sums up my beginner tarot mistakes. I hope you learned something from it, maybe recognized your past self in one of the mistakes, or maybe even caught yourself falling into a trap. And of course, not everybody who makes these mistakes is a beginner. There's also, like, sometimes I have to remind myself, always look at the whole of the spread, not just card by card. Because tarot is a very, you have to be there in order to do it well. It's a very engaged activity. So definitely take the time to think about these mistakes, and I'd love to hear what mistakes you made when you were a newbie, or what mistakes you feel like you're making now, or if you're stuck in a rut when it comes to tarot, or if you're just stuck in your tarot practice, basically. Let me know in the comments, and remember, it's all in the cards. Have a great day, and thank you for watching.